and we are continuing our third class in the mini series on Cain and Hevel. And tonight I want to take a look at the question of God's message to Cain and the aftermath of that. So let's put you on the side here, everybody. Okay. Close this off for now. Here we are. So firstly, what happens? They've each brought their offering. Cain brought from Mipri Ha'adama, from the fruit of the land, an offering to God. We talked last week. It either means that he just took secondhand garbagey stuff, or he brought flax as his offering to God. The Hevel Hevi Gamhu Mibecharot Sono. That Hevel he also brought, but he brought from the first of his sheep, Umichel Vehen, from their fats. Vayisha Adonai El Hevel ve'el Minchato, and God Vayisha, he certainly he showed favor towards, and we understand that. Well, let's see what that means exactly. Towards Hevel and his mincha and his offering. Ve'el Cain ve'el Minchato lo sha'ah, and to Cain and to his offering, God did not pay heed. Let's say. Vayichal Cain ma'od vayiplu panav, and Cain was very angry, and his face fell. It's important to notice here that there's not just the rejection of the sacrifice, but also the rejection of the person. Vayisha Hashem el Hevel ve'el minchato. Right? God turns towards Hevel and his offering. Because of the offering, God turns to and is accepting of him in a certain way. And because of Cain's offering, God is not interested in not only the offering, but in Cain himself. This is much bigger than just the sacrifice. It is one sense of whether God has any interest in them or not. I need to make this smaller so we can go. Hold on. We're going to play around with this a little bit. I meant this up. Okay, give me a second, everybody. Pardon me. We'll shorten this. This will put aside. Here we go. Make this smaller. And we'll move this over here. Okay. Screens are not so simple. Let's get this to cooperate. Okay. So what are we to make of this acceptance or rejection? So how about when do you start us off here? This is from the Breshit Rabbah, which says something about what that word means. The Hebrew word vayisha and sha'ah. I'm sorry, you're going to have one Hebrew word in the middle of your translation. When do you want to unmute and read it for us? When do you got to unmute first?
And Adonai to Hevel and his offering. He was pacified because of him, and to Cain and his offering, he did not.
Sha'ah.
He was not pacified because of him.
So this midrash understands that this word vayisha and sha'ah is related to the word nitpayes. Lefayes means to appease, right, or to pacify. And God was pacified by one, not pacified by the other. What do you do? What do you think about that word, pacify? How does that work for you? Does that help you here? Is it something
it confuses me a little bit, because to me, when you pacify somebody, it's because they were angry or upset.
Right. So if we take it to the way we usually use this word, then we have an angry God that needs to be calmed down. But like we have no sense of God angry here, right? And it also to these other versions of things. If we take it too far, this midrash, it'll sound a lot like how pagan sacrifice was understood, right? The gods are angry. We better offer some offering, and we'll deal with it. But we don't have any. There's no angry God story happening, and so it's more likely that it just means that it means to allow oneself to feel comfortable towards and positive towards, right? That sense of what the hitpayes. And so God is just not not feeling it with this Cain guy, and he is feeling it with regards to Hevel. Okay, what would be the way? Maybe we mentioned this. What would be the way you'd know if you were an earthling? How would you know that God was happy with your offering? You can actually unmute yourself, folks. Well, we're going to play it out for a little bit. Unmute and see how well we do. Okay. How would you know as a human being that God liked your offering?
He consumes it.
He consumes it, right? And the consume
Fire or smoke?
Good question, Rabbi.
Yeah. What would be the way that?
I don't know.
What would be the way that it would happen? You know, at least in certain special biblical stories, God made it clear that He accepted an offering because a fire came down from heaven and consumed it. Generally, in the Beit HaMikdash, that's not how things worked. The fire was set and brought by the Kohanim, and they set it up. But at certain key moments, the fire from heaven is a very important thing. And so that's how these commentaries will read this. Let's take a look at the... Well, let's first read the Bechor Shor. Does anybody want to read this Bechor Shor? Will, can you see this?
No.
Okay. Norma, can you see this? And he did not pay heed?
Yes. And he did not pay heed to Cain and to his sacrifice. He scorned Cain and scorned his sacrifice. And God gave them a sign so that they would know which sacrifice was satisfactory.
And
Which was not. Fire came down from heaven and consumed Abel's sacrifice. But God did not respond to Cain's sacrifice with a divine fire.
Okay, we see that. Go on.
We see that it is common for a divine fire to come as a response to a sacrifice that was accepted, as we find in the stories of the tabernacle, of the temple, and of Elijah.
Those are three special cases. I'm not actually sure what the temple reference was, but the tabernacle reference is the dedication of the Mishkan, where the fire comes down from heaven and consumes. The story of Elijah is what happens when Elijah is taking on all the false prophets of Baal at Mount Carmel, and the fire comes down from heaven too. So that's what you have here. And the point that we made before about God rejecting and versus desiring, Sepharno is the one who lets us know very clearly that it was not just the offering, but the man himself. So let's go back to our text. What is the response? Right? The response on Cain's part is. Hold on a second. Let me close this up. What's the response on his part? Vayichar l'Cain me'od. Vayichar. Anybody know what that word means? Like charon af.
Okay.
Enraged.
Where
right?
are you?
He's very, very angry. Vayiplu panav, and his face fell. So let's just ask this question on our own here. So the two reactions are anger and a fallen face. First, what does a fallen face mean?
He's hurt. He's
hurt. Good. Other words for the fallen face.
Depressed.
Depressed. Good. Others. We're just going to do it. We're going to do a thesaurus action here.
Disgrace.
Disgrace. Yeah.
Drooping.
Daniel, what'd you say?
Drooping.
One more time. I'm not hearing you.
Drooping.
Drooping. Okay, drooping. Right. So that's a physical manifestation of it. But these are signs of dejection. Right. He feels dejected. Rejection leads to dejection. Right. So there's anger and dejection at the same time, which is a sense of when you feel dejected, what's your sense of the possible?
You feel worthless. You feel
worthless. Good.
So worthless.
And what are the possibilities of anything being better?
No
There
hope.
is
No hope, right? You feel hopeless in all of that. So, yes,
Can
go
I go
ahead.
Rabbi,
Jerry
if-
first and Hedda.
if Cain was a good guy, but brought a poor sacrifice, so I can understand where God would reject it as not being acceptable. But all of this anger and this anger at Cain indicates that God had a whole list of things against Cain.
Interesting. That's very interesting, right?
That he had against him. What had Cain done that was so wrong?
Well,
Other than the sacrifice.
yeah, I don't know. So you're an attorney, so you're gonna simply float this to the jury to simply. I don't have the answer to this, but ladies and gentlemen, these reactions would seem to create a pattern that we should presume is in place without having any evidence of it. But so that's yeah. I think there is a question about this. Whoa, this is a big overreaction. It would seem. Well, but you inserted something which is not clear in the text. The text says "Vayichar l'Cain," right? And he was very angry, but the text doesn't tell you what.
why.
Why?
Well, why? Okay, good. But why because he's been rejected, right? But who's the anger towards? What are the possibilities, everybody?
It ends up his brother he's angry
His
at.
brother. Good. He's angry at Hevel. Another possibility.
He's angry at God also.
He's angry at God for
Angry at God.
for pushing him away. And let's keep it all the possibilities.
Maybe he's angry at his parents also.
At his
because-
parents. Who told you to have that other kid?
He should be angry at himself.
And angry at himself, right? All those possibilities are very real for us here. Angry at himself. So if he's angry at his brother, what's he angry about?
He's jealous, really.
Good. Well, but so I'm angry at you, brother, for fill in the sentence.
Doing so well.
Or one up.
Yeah, for showing me up, right? I'm angry at you for. And if you notice, the text in the Torah says, "Hevel hevi gamhu," and Hevel also brought. And so you can kind of say like, yeah, you were such a copycat, right? You saw that I was doing something, and then you went out of your way to try to make yours better than mine, and that's why God rejected me and mine, because you are such a bleeping show off, all the words we might otherwise know from elementary school for the kid who, not just hands in the report, but also colors the front page of it and whatever. Right? Come on. So
Could Cain also have anger because he was the firstborn, and here was the secondborn outflanking him?
yes.
Basically.
So that's either because you have your nerve for pushing yourself in front of me, or you have your nerve for showing me up. And we actually the fifth possible anger is just towards the reality, which is like, I know it's probably not really an accurate assumption, but like, I'm just angry at the facts. The facts are really bad, right? And because each of the people can, will defend themselves in some way. But I'm just angry that this is the way it is, and I'm coming up short, and I'm coming up with this rejectedness. Okay, so against his brother, we have a few versions of it. I like to play in that word, the Hebel Hibi Gamhu, that he sees, and he's defining the narrative. My brother's a little copycat who then went out of his way to make it better than me. Anger at himself is because
He did a lousy job. He gave a lousy sacrifice.
yeah,
He
what's the matter with me?
underachieved.
Well, I was cheap, right? What's the matter with me? Why couldn't I have been a mensch and been generous and been giving in my act of giving? Why was I stingy in my giving, right? again, you can think about this, right? Why did I give as a wedding gift to this couple, the ugly plate that actually was I'm just really regifted from somebody else? Like, why can't I just come up with something really nice? All my reminders are popping up on the screen here. What's wrong with me, right? That I couldn't be the right kind of giver to God in this moment. And you can then say, what's wrong with my parents? They didn't teach me how to do this right? And if he's angry at God, I don't know. Tell me, what's he angry at God for?
God didn't explain to him what he needed.
What he was. You should have told me how to sacrifice to you. Okay.
Well, that's what
God could have said something nice to him, even if he rejected the sacrifice. You tried, but I really should
right.
have
So in the
gotten
moment,
first.
all we know is that he's sitting there. Let's think of it this way, right? Havel's sacrifice offering is there on the altar, and a fire comes down and consumes it, and Cain's standing there waiting. And it's like 2, 3, 4, 5 o'clock, and nothing. That's what the Torah implied. Nothing happens. It's just sitting, and it's starting to to turn brown from the oxygenation of the rotten fruit that he put there, right? And like, okay, so I guess.
Well,
so God, speak. Tell me, and of course God will speak to him in a moment. Only when he kind of has this full, fullness of anger at the reality. But of course, God, why did you reject me? You blame the being or the person that rejects you, even if it's not, it's your fault. But we tend to blame the other for the rejection, even if we are deserving of it.
All right.
Okay. So let's keep that. It's critical. I realize my hands in front of the camera is a little frightening. Keep that in the perspective as we now hear we read God's comments to him. Okay, so let's go back to this.
Mine didn't come up last time. Oh, there they are.
There's the text.
Okay.
All right, wait a minute. So we're going where? I have the text in English.
So God says in verse 6, Vayomer Adonai El Cain.
Yeah.
God said to Cain, why are you angry? And why has your face fallen? How would you describe that question? What type of question is that?
God would expect that he would know better. But I don't know how.
So this is a rhetorical question, right? Like, whoa, like, why are you angry? Why are you dejected? You should understand what's going on here, right? That's possible. This is also one of those, like, this is an exploratory question, which on the one hand, God shows that he's fully aware of the reactions of the human being in front of him, who hasn't said a word, but it's all over his face. And it's actually a strange combination because there's really two steps. First, anger, and then dejection really is, levels of dealing with it. First, I am angry, and then I feel all dejected. And God says, why? Let's process this. God said, let's process, right? Now we have a challenge. Halo in tetiv se'et. Hello, is it not so? In tetiv, if you do good, se'et carries. V'im lo tetiv, and if you do not do good, la petach chatat rovates. To the door, sin crouches. Ve'elecha teshukato, and towards you is its yearning. Ve'ata timshal bo, and you shall, or you can, overcome it, master over it. Now, is this clear what God is saying?
Not entirely. Why is it translated as crouches? I have the Steinsaltz Chumash. Why is it translated as crouches by the door?
Yeah, well, something's crouching by the door.
God improve yourself.
So generally, what crouches? When you think of something crouching by the door, what are you thinking of?
An animal
An animal which is
ready to pounce.
right. It's on the hunt, right?
Low to the ground.
So maybe you have a cat. The truth is, they are ready to hunt. They're terrible beings. But sorry, it's not the time to do it. Greg, I'm just going to insult you. But in the pouncing, the crouching mode is that you're ready to pounce. Okay, whether it's just for fun or it's for somehow to
Take the bird.
right? But that's the imagery we're supposed to have. So and what is crouching?
Evil inclinations.
Oh,
Chatat. Sin is crouching.
Yeah, all right. Then it's
Sin is crouching.
Sin is crouching?
Sin.
Not
Chatat.
a,
What's that called?
But what do
not
you
a
do? What's
person.
the name?
Not a person. God says, I'm going to read it again. Is it not true that if you do good, se'et, we don't know what that word se'et means, it is lifted. V'imlo tetiv, and if you do not do good, lafetach chatat rovetz, towards the door, sin crouches. Ve'elecha teshukato, and towards you is its teshukah, its yearning. Ve'atatim shalbo, and you can overcome it. So its yearning and overcoming it is referring to what still? What is the it?
The rejection of the offering.
Of the sin.
The
I don't
anger.
know.
No,
Is
the
God
sin.
speaking only about the offering right now, or is he speaking more
General.
about something philosophically with him, right?
People.
I
Yeah.
see.
So
is this the beginning of Jewish? Is this the beginning of Jewish psychiatry?
yes, God is the first psychiatrist. He is certainly laying out for him, putting a mirror in front of him, right, and also pointing out simply what are the implications of courses of action. That's what God says. You do good, then this, and if you don't do good, then this. This is like, don't blame. What? Don't blame.
Me, God.
And don't blame your brother, and don't blame your mother. Okay, so that's where he's not exactly a psychologist, right? Because they're supposed to blame your mother and your father, right? Don't blame any of them. Who should you blame?
Yourself.
And it's clear. You do the right thing, then we would have said you do the right thing, then good things follow, and you do the wrong thing, then trouble follows. Booby, that's all you got to know. So,
But you have to know what's good and evil.
What?
You have to know what is good.
You have to know what's good and evil. So we should be recognizing that Hedda has now had this is a third comment in the same course, because Hedda's wondering why God's not being fair to Cain. How should Cain have known better in this situation, right, Hedda? Yes. And I probably would say that bringing a rotten fruit, you should know better, right? On the other hand, if it's flax, I'm not sure if you should have known better. But rotten fruit, I think you should have known better, right? So, but those are two different interpretations of what he brought. So let's actually look firstly at teaching of the Rav Saadia Gaon here. Rav Saadia Gaon is really the earliest of all of our commentators. And he has a lengthy piece. I'm just going to reference it, and this is in Hebrew. And he basically says there are 3 points that God's making to him. Number one, and this is a message to all servants of God, he says. L'yom shebo yamod ha'adam al gmulo. This is a discussion about the day that a person will stand basically before his maker. Chatat rovetz, he said that sin crouches. Olam hazeh shnei petachim. There are 2 doors to this world. L'knisa u'litziyah. There's a door in and a door out of this world. And that's what the first teaching is, that there is, this will be with you, this sin, going into the world beyond. Second point he makes. The second thing he's teaching him is you have choice and volition. You have choice and volition. Don't blame anything else, and don't blame your mother, and don't blame your upbringing. Don't blame anything else. You have choice and volition in this regard. And the third thing he says, Vanyan Hashlishi Hateshuva. The third thing he teaches him is about repentance. If you do good, Se'et, you will be lifted up. And if you don't do good, if you don't do good, your sin is gonna be there following you to the other door. That's how he's reading it, right? To the other door on the way out of this world to the heavenly court. But you should know, it wants you, but you can overpower it because you have free will, and you can fix things. And God, in effect, is saying to him, right now, what can you do? Right now, what can you do? What could Cain do right then and there? Teshuva, good. And what would Teshuva look like?
He could go get
Fruit, bringing a better offering.
Get a better offering, right? It's not over. There's not a zero-sum game here. You're not ruined forever, Bubby. Go back out. Go and rethink about what you have and what is an appropriate offering to God, and let's do this again. And you do it again, everything will be good, and I will turn towards it, and the fire will come down from heaven, and then you don't have to feel bad, and just it's okay. You fix it. There's not this one time and it's over. That's really valuable, right? That's the message that God is trying to teach him. Let's read this Gemara, which is a different angle. Bobby, you want to read this for us?
Sure. So to the Holy One, blessed be he, said to Israel, my children, I created an evil inclination, which is the wound, and I created Torah as its antidote. If you are engaged in Torah study, you will not be given over into the hand of the evil inclination. As it is stated, if you do well, shall it not be lifted up. One who engages in Torah study lifts himself above the evil inclination.
So the Se'et line we have here, one version of it is that it carries, and we've talked about in earlier classes about what it means that God carries sin. That means that God basically, is willing to forgive sin. That's one version of Se'et. In this case, it means you can lift yourself up against sin. And how can you do that? The Gemara is interested in its topic is talking about Torah study. So it says, you want to know what to do about your evil inclination? What should you do when you have an evil inclination?
Torah.
Go study. Okay, so this is, by the way, there are discussions about when somebody indeed has desire starting to overtake him to do something wrong, and I think Chazal is speaking, I think in a sexual regard, right? So what should a person do when they're starting to become overtaken by a lust for something? So the Gemara says you should go to the Beit Midrash, go to the study hall. Okay, take your mind off of all the other stuff. By you will overcome the Yetzer Hara if you feed it. But if you deny it oxygen by turning your attention towards something virtuous, in this case Torah study, you will defeat that Yetzer Hara. Okay.
Oh.
What? Well, you like that? So
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that anybody who's in the base medrash must really be struggling with their lust. But it does mean that if that's on your mind, don't turn on pornography. Go open a chumash. Okay, that's what that's the message there. So let's go on, and then the Gemara continues. Go ahead, Bobby. And if you do not engage in Torah,
If you do not engage in Torah study, you are given over to its power, as it is stated. Sin crouches at the door. Moreover, all of the evil inclinations, deliberations will be concerning you, as it is stated in the same verse, and to you is its desire.
wow, that means that basically the Yetzer Hara says, I got a live one here, right? And it's weak. I'm going to go in for this one full thrust. That's ve'elacha teshukaso, and then suddenly it is only interested in you. It senses a weakness, and now it wants you fully. And even so, go on.
And if you wish, you shall rule over it, as it is stated in the conclusion of the verse, but you may rule over it.
So that is, right, that is basically, Rashi pretty much reads it this way. Also, we're talking about our relationship to the Yetzer Hara. And if you take a look here at this, let's take a look at Ibn Ezra for a second. Greg, can you read this for us?
Sure.
Let's start with the first part.
Some commentators explained as you carry sin. And what is correct in my eyes is that it lifting the face, for it was written initially, and his face fell. And that a depiction of shame, and the meaning is, if you do good, you will lift your face.
So the lifting is the exact opposite of the fallen face before. If you do good, you will no longer feel dejected. Okay, and go on. Rick, sin crouches at the door.
So sin crouches at the door, and the correct meaning in my eyes is that the inclinations of a person crouch there with him. And its lust is for you, for the desire is given over that which is implied in your will. Yet you also have the power to master over it.
So this is, so I always, when I want to think about this story, I try to think about bedtime. And there's a kid who's, been throwing himself around the house the whole evening. I'm angry and I'm right. And the parent might sit down and say, I see what you're showing, right? I see that you're angry. I see that you're dejected, right? I said, yeah, I am. So, probably go a little further here. So tell me why. Just because you didn't accept my offering. And in a calm kind of voice, you say, look, this is not over. And there's tomorrow. And I believe you should not think of yourself as I'm a failure. I could never do any better. And he said, no, it's not true. You can really do something different. And the more you don't believe in yourself, then the weaker you are in the face of the forces that would like to take over you, or right? And you're gonna collapse under it. But I believe in you, God says, parent says, you can do this, and you can be better. You will be better if you just put yourself towards it. Im tetiv se'et. If you do good and you put yourself around that, then good will follow you. Good night. And he gives him a kiss on his kepi, and the next morning he gets up and says, I'm going to try this again, and goes out and he gets the right thing, and yes, what a glorious day. So that's what, my mind has this as a story in which God is affirming the human being's capacity to rally and turn a corner and make things right.
Mm-hmm.
Same time, it's also a story of, because what happens afterwards?
Cain didn't get the message.
The possibility that a person will simply grab the opportunity to do better and will and will continue to spiral out of control.
Oh,
That is
I
what
see.
happens, right? That is
Oh, I
what
see.
happens. You would have thought that after God says this to you, then you say, "Whew, okay, it was a rough first try. I'm going to work on it again." And instead, what you say is, God hates me, and God doesn't believe in me, and God has rejected me, and I might as well just be better. That's kind of what
Mhm.
might as well just be better than I was before.
I see.
And that's like so sad. It's like, what about what I just said to you? You know, should have taken you that direction. But may I ask you a question? Does this ring true for you in some experiences, or your awareness of some people?
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
wherever in some people.
Yeah. Jerry, you say yes. Tell me more.
I know people who always look to blame it on someone else. They never look at themselves and say, gee, maybe I was to blame.
Yeah, but in this case, it's not just about blame, right? God is saying you actually have capacity. Just put yourself towards it, and you will persevere. And somehow or another, there's just, it's just it's a really like tragic recognition that some people just can't rally themselves the way they need to.
Well, maybe the intervention was too late. Maybe
be.
if somebody
But you think it's too late, right?
confronted
So
them with this
if they're
earlier,
following
they
Jerry's
could-
theory from before, right? There's been years and years of rotten stuff in this guy, and now it's reached the peak here. So then you say, well, like now he's not going to learn the lesson, right? But if this, on the other hand, is just like the Torah says, after a number of years, it's the first time, and God's saying, hey, this is not over. We're just starting here. So then I think that I would push back against Wendy and say, like, it wasn't too late, but you have to be ready to receive the intervention and to hear the message. But if in the end as Jerry, if you just want to blame other people, then the message isn't just going into your head. They're not going into your head.
I can make one comment.
Sounds like Trump.
From doing psychotherapy, I can tell you, if a person doesn't see his own agency, if he doesn't see his or her own involvement in the event, he will. There's no hope in insight.
Yeah.
Wow. You have to have enough self-worth to see that you have agency in this sort of situation.
Did everybody hear what Dennis said?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have enough self-worth to believe you have agency, to see your role in something, at the same time to also know that you have it. So there's something about this man right now which is broken, right? Or just, right, it's not whole, and so he's not able to hear it. So isn't that sad? Like the first children of human beings, you really have these two typologies, right? You have a Hevel who seems to be well put together. He knows what to do right. He just does it. And the other one who's just every move is, or seems to be just in the wrong direction, and he can't then see his own role in anything. So if I gave you an image, which is that he was in, that the Abba lovingly has a conversation on the bed with him. And that's one version of it. But the other version of it is that he's called into the principal's office, right? And the principal doesn't say, you're throwing you out. He doesn't say, I'm giving you a warning. He says, hey, what's the matter with you? You can do this, and gives him some form of a pep talk, kind of. But in the end, all he feels is, I got pulled into the principal's office because of you, right? And that's all he's able to relate to. So this leaves us on the doorstep. The other doorstep, right? So, where God is giving you one version of it, and that the real belief in humanity, and humans going to tell us, don't believe, and certain humans are going to say, don't believe in me. It is poorly placed, your belief in me, and that's going to lead us to the next day. We're going to stop here though, and next week we're going to pick it up. with the events that day in the field and the aftermath. Okay, that'll be our study. I really thank you for unpacking this text with me. I think it was really good, and I appreciate, Dennis, you're coming in at the end with a good framing of it also. A lot to think about ourselves. Rick, we didn't listen to your comment before because this is an apolitical context.
I know.
I hope, even as an apolitical context, I do hope that everyone will take advantage of the gift that we have of this country and vote early and often. No, vote
Tempting, tempting.
and make
Try
a difference.
twice.
And make a
Try
difference
twice.
for all of us. Okay, everybody. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.